Today, the National Security Agency will end its mass collection of Americans' phone records that began under the Patriot Act. It comes 2 years after the bulk phone surveillance program was exposed by Edward Snowden. The program revealed who Americans were calling and when, but not what they were saying. The White House says it will be replaced by a more tightly targeted and scaled-back system. So while this is a long-awaited victory for privacy advocates, it comes at a time when national security concerns are heightened in the wake of the terror attacks in Paris. Will this move help or hurt the U.S.'s fight to bolster national security? That's our topic this half hour. We want to hear from you on our Fox 26 Facebook page. You can also weigh in on Twitter. Use the hashtag Fox26forlife. Joining us live in the newsroom is our panel led by our senior legal analyst, Chris Tritico, our news analyst, Mustafa Tamiz, and public policy analyst, Jackie Bally. What do you think about this coming to an end today?
You know, the answer to the question, will it hurt or help national security? I think the answer is neither. All of the testimony before Congress when Edward Snowden first released this information was that not one person has been caught as a result of the bulk surveillance of Americans' phone calls. And so I don't think it does anything. If the president's telling the truth and Congress is going to pass a different bill, then the public will have a chance to look at that and see, Mustafa Tamiz, if that's going to help national security. I don't think that in the wake of the Paris attacks, we should make the same mistakes we made in the wake of 9/11, and that's pass bills granting the government unfettered authority to snoop into our own lives.
I think Benjamin Franklin said it best. He said, people willing to trade their freedom for temporary security deserve neither and will get none, right? So this is a precedent that our founding fathers had put, that there's a balance between national security and security needs versus our liberties. And this bulk data was going too far. What we learned from Paris is that initially reports people were talking about that they may be using some kind of encrypted software to talk with each other. We found out that was completely untrue. They were using old-fashioned cell phones. And once they found that one cell phone, they were able to do police work to find out other people that were connected to it. So there was 2 different independent groups that looked at it since 9/11 with national security clearances. They didn't find a single shred of evidence saying that we caught anybody because of that bulk data collection program.
And we've talked about this before. The fact that the government caught no one as a result of this but collected data on our own citizens is probably the reason why Congress authorized the change.
Sure. You have reports as high as 900,000 people who are impacted by this, and it's 9 Americans to 1 non-American. That's the ratio of who's in this collection of data through emails, pictures, or whatever. So, and nothing has happened. So yes, that's exactly why our Congress has made this change. And I actually think that instead of looking at our data, 900,000 Americans, looking at their data, we need to be, again, focusing on border control if we're going to be actually tackling a lot of these issues.
What about that? What if Congress came back and said, here's the way we're going to collect data? Is that going to solve the issue for privacy concerns?
Well, depending on what data and how they're collected. But the bigger issue is not that we don't have information, but we have too much information. Our ability to connect the dots in terms of collecting the right amount of information, and the laws that we have help protect that process. And by just giving more and more of our freedom away, we're not gaining any security.
Well, let me ask it this way: if Congress said we're going to collect data on a certain subset of Americans, there are those people who would say not without a warrant. We have a 4th Amendment to the Constitution, not without a warrant.
Absolutely, and the warrant process has worked for 200+ years. It has kept us safe. That process can't be away. A judge has to look at something and say, this requires you to look into it, not giving it in the hands of any investigator.
The government, including the president, says in times like this, that process is too cumbersome for us to make these investigations.
Yes, the process that they have actually for the data collection has proven that they're not actually helping in trying to discover who may be a threat to Americans or who may be a threat to our safety. So they have to come up with a new process. But on the opposite, whenever we're doing a vetting process for those who are coming into the country, they're saying that that process is not thorough enough. So clearly we need to shift our focus from looking at Americans who are already here to try to focus on policy, strict, tight policy on those who are coming into our country.
But the president says, and I didn't ask the question fair, and I'm sorry, the president says, and Republicans and Democrats in government say we shouldn't have to use the Fourth Amendment to collect this bulk data on our own citizens?
Again, because if we had border control and looked at who was coming into our country, that is the first step of what we need to find out. Who's coming into our country? If we actually secured our borders and we knew who was coming into our country, we wouldn't have to have data collection that we have right now, looking at Americans, what pictures they're taking, what emails are being sent.
We got to run. Final thought, is this a border control issue?
No, I mean this NSA wiretap issue has gone on. We have given up too much of our liberty for very little security, and we need to start going in the other direction.